Hi everyone. Today we're going to be demonstrating how to answer questions like this in a quick and easy fashion on the SAT. Now, this question right here tests if you can do mathematical operations with algebraic expressions. Now, I know that sounds crazy. I don't want to hear anything about that. But to translate to English, what that simply means is, are you able to do things like addition, subtraction, division, and multiplication with variables instead of just with numbers like you're used to doing? So today, we're going to try to do this mathematically first, and after that, we're going to show ourselves how to do it in a quick and easy fashion, which might be useful for you if, for example, you forget the math to do while you're taking the test, or if you're concerned about getting it wrong and you want to be super accurate, or if you don't even know what the mathematical way to do it is. But first, let's do it mathematically. This question asks us to find which of the options is equivalent to this fraction. We start by working with the denominator because it's the least simple part of it. The numerator is simple, it's just 1. But the denominator is not simple, so we want to write it in a simpler form. Well, we can write that as this. Now, what we want is to have a common denominator for the fraction. To find a common denominator, you want to multiply both fractions by the product of their denominators. So this is the first denominator, and this is the second denominator. So the product of their denominators is going to be something like this. X plus 2 times x plus 3. And you want to multiply both the top and the bottom by this. Okay, so for the first part, and then same thing for the second one. Now, if you try to carry out this multiplication, you'll find out that the x plus 2 at the bottom divides through into the x plus 2 at the top. So you end up with x plus 3 over x plus 2 times x plus 3 plus, same thing here, this divides into this, x plus 2 over x plus 2 times x plus 3. Now, they have the same denominator, which wasn't the case initially when we started right here. So now that they have the same denominator, you can just simply add up their numerators. So your denominator then becomes x plus 2 times x plus 3, and your numerator becomes x plus 3 plus x plus 2. Now x plus 3 plus x plus 2 is equal to, first of all, you add up the x's. X plus x is 2x, and then 3 plus 2 is 5. Now remember, what we have solved for is just the denominator of the question. Just this part of the question is what we've solved for. Essentially, what that means is that what we have found so far is 1 divided by 2x plus 5 divided by x plus 2 times x plus 3. Now, because when you divide a fraction into 1, what you do is you flip the fraction. This becomes equal to x plus 2 times x plus 3 divided by 2x plus 5. Now we take a look at the options, but we don't see that in the options. Well, what's missing? We can then think and say to ourselves that if we multiply out the top, would actually get x times x, which is using the FOIL method. X times x is x squared. X times 3 is plus 3x. 2 times x is plus 2x. And then 2 times 3 is 6. Now this is equal to x squared plus 5x plus 6 over 2x plus 5, which makes the answer B. Now notice that if you had forgotten to flip, so if you had forgotten that it was 1 divided by this fraction, and you had left it this way, this would have been your answer, which would have been wrong. So the options, as I always tell students, are deliberately misleading. They take advantage of the careless mistakes that you might make, which is why you want to avoid making those kinds of careless mistakes. So this is the mathematical way to solve it. But let's say you don't remember how to do it, or this seems intimidating to you for whatever reason. The next thing we're going to work on is how can you answer this by plugging in. So plugging in is a tested strategy that helps students to improve their scores on the SAT by getting points for questions that either they've forgotten how to do the math for, or they find the math intimidating, or they actually don't even know the math at all. Plugging in helps you to get points for those kinds of questions. Now, before you plug in, you want to pay careful attention to the question and to any restrictions that are put on the variable in the question. So for example, in this case, it says if x is greater than 3. So that's something we have to keep in mind when we plug in. It says if x is greater than 3, which of the following is equivalent to 1 over x plus 2 plus 1 over x plus 3? So we have to pick a number for x. However, the question clearly tells us that x has to be greater than 3. So we choose the next easiest number that is greater than 3. That's 4. Now we have 1. What we then do is that we plug in 4 into the question for x. So you have 1 divided by 1 over 4 plus 2 plus 1 divided by 4 plus 3. Now 4 plus 2 is 6 and 4 plus 3 is 7. So you have 1 divided by 1 over 6 plus 1 over 7. Now usually, from what you've learned about how to add fractions, you multiply both the top and the bottom of each fraction by the product of the denominators. What does that mean? 6 times 7 is equal to 42. So you multiply 1 over 6 by 42 over 42, and you multiply 1 over 7 by 42 over 42. At this point, you have that 6 divided by 42 is what? 7. So this is 7 over 42. And 7 divided by 42 is what? 6. So you have 6 over 42. Now that they have the same denominator, you can actually add up the numerators. So you have 42 at the denominator, and 7 plus 6 is 13. Now let's not forget, once again, that we had 1 divided by 1 over 6 plus 1 over 7. So this just makes this 1 divided by 13 divided by 42, which is the same thing as 42 over 13. So this right here is the key thing we want to come to. So when we make x 4, the fraction becomes 42 over 13. The next step is to plug in x equal to 4 into each of the options, and the right answer will be the one that also gives us 42 over 13. If we plug in x equal to 4 for A, we end up with 2 times 4 plus 5 divided by 4 squared plus 5 times 4 plus 6. Well, 2 times 4 is 8. 8 plus 5 is 13. 4 squared is 16. 5 times 4 is 20. So 16 plus 20 is 36. And 36 plus 6 is 42. But 13 over 42 is not equal to 42 over 13. So it can be A. Let's try B. Let's try B. B is going to have to be 4 squared plus 5 times 4 plus 6 divided by 2 times 4 plus 5. Well, once again, 4 squared is 16, 16 plus 20 is 36, and 36 plus 6 is 42. So that's 42. 2 times 4 is 8, and 8 plus 5 is 13. So that's 13. 42 over 13 is actually equal to 42 over 13. Now, we're confident that this should be the answer, but we can try the other ones just to make sure. Now, at this point, we already know from plugging in 4 for the other ones that 2x plus 5, when you plug in 4, always gives you 13. So C is 13, and D, which is going to be x squared plus 5x plus 6, is 42. So only B actually gives us 42 over 13, and that way we know that the right answer is 42 over 13, which makes B the right answer. One final thing to note is that sometimes after you plug in a number, you might have more than one option be right. So for example, you could have plugged in a number and ended up with C giving you 42 over 13 for some reason. In that case, you go back and you choose a new number. So you then choose 5. Let's say you choose 5. If for whatever reason you get the same number for two options, you choose a new number like 5 for example, and then you plug in that new number for the two options that are giving you the same answer. By the time you plug in that number for those two options, and you plug it also for the original thing, by the time you do that, only one of the two should be correct. Okay? But that really happens. More often than not, if you plug in a number, only one will be correct, and that will be your right answer. Alright? So, to recap, what we have tried to demonstrate here is that if for whatever reason you come across a question for which you have a vague idea of the math, but you really don't remember the math, or you don't know the math at all, or you want to be super careful, you think you don't want to get it wrong, and if you're super careful, you would get it right, then a very good backup strategy to have is plugging in. You make up a number for the variable, you plug it into the question first, and then you plug it into each one of the answer options. I encourage you to try this strategy on your SAT practice questions as you practice for the SAT, and leave comments for me on what your observations are, or if you have any questions about the plugging in method.